So the first element is all students are digital learners, and this is part observation and part goal. The fact of the matter is that students today are digital learners. They're learning every single day using gaming, computers, every possible way that they could access and interact digitally. They're doing it. They're doing it everywhere except for school. And so we really want to bring digital learning into school. And so we think that digital learning, a high-quality digital learning system, would include all students, and that all students, anytime during their K-12 public high school or during K-12 education, would have access to and be eligible for digital learning. The second element is that all students have access to high-quality digital content and online courses. So there's one thing to make students eligible, but there's another thing to provide the capacity so that students can actually access that digital learning. And so we think there are two ways to do it, sort of a little play on supply and demand. One thing is we think all students in high school ought to take at least one college or career-ready digital learning course. We think it's important in this digital age in the 21st century economy that students have experience learning digitally, because that's really the world that they're going to enter when they graduate from high school. The other part of that is that we need to do everything that we can to expand the capacity for all of these students entering into the digital learning environment. And so that means changing the way we think about things. So not having restrictions based on class size or caps on enrollment or budget that are really artificial to try and limit the number of students who can access digital learning. Or in some cases where geography might be a restriction. In the digital age, a provider should and could provide education and learning across school district lines, across state lines, even across national lines. And so we should embrace that opportunity, because there's a lot of high quality teachers out there that can be extend their reach beyond just the school that they're working in. Probably the greatest opportunity that exists with digital learning is personalized learning. Digital learning and technology, if we harness it, we can customize education for each and every student in the country. And the potential is incredible. So students can really learn at their own pace, they can learn in their own style, and it could really liberate students who are struggling or students who are bored because they're actually mastered the material in the class where others are still gaining the knowledge for the course that they're taking. So it really has exponential opportunities. And we think that we ought to allow students to customize their education so they can access digital learning either as a full-time student, a part-time student, or just by the individual course, so that they get the experience that of digital learning, but they're also getting that high-quality content as well. We think enrollment we ought to open it to multiple providers, that students ought to be able to blend their courses. I mean, the greatest opportunity that we could have is a high school student who gets up in the morning and goes to school and has 2 classes at high school and then takes 2 classes at digital learning and then is dual enrolled at a local community college and really has a very well-rounded education. The opportunity is there with technology. We ought to we have the opportunity to embrace it. And so that also means not limiting the opportunities, so that students can take as many courses as they want online if they want to do that, and that we don't limit the options that they have or try and restrict them, that we let them really pursue and self-direct their education, where we think there's going to be the greatest opportunity for success. The fourth element is advancement, and this goes along with personal learning. So students should be able to matriculate based on when they've demonstrated the competency in the material. And so school systems are based on an agrarian calendar. We start in the end of summer and beginning of the fall, and we end in the beginning of the summer, and then we all go out to harvest the crops, or most of us do. Some of us do. But that we no longer have to have that. Really, what we can do is we can have year-round learning. And students we should maximize the opportunity for students, once they master the material, to move on to the next level. And that would also eliminate the need for seat time. As Governor Wise said, some students are going to learn in a shorter amount of time, and some students are going to learn in a longer amount of time, and that should be the metric for success. Achievement should be what the goal of education is, not how long a student sits in a seat in a classroom each day or how many days a year they go to school. The fifth element is high quality content. Digital content, instructional materials, and online and blended learning courses are high quality. And so we think there's a struggle in this new medium between balancing out the quality with the accountability. And so we think what's most important is that the quality of the course be aligned, or that the courses be aligned to state standards or Common Core standards, and that is really the bar. And if they are, then we should be assured that it's high quality content. Instruction, digital instruction, and teachers are high quality. Great teachers produce great students, no matter where they teach, no matter how they teach. Great students have great teachers produce great outcomes. And so we want to use digital learning to extend the reach of great teachers, extend the reach of effective teachers to students everywhere. And so we believe that there ought to be alternative certification routes, and one of them, is potentially performance-based. So if you're a teacher and you're proven to be an effective teacher, that would be the threshold for certification. Certification reciprocity, this again goes back to the geography issue of a great teacher in Michigan can teach students in Ohio, Florida, Virginia, California, all over the country. And so we ought to be creating opportunities for those connections to be made. And so reciprocity is one way to be able to do that. Multi-location instruction, where a teacher in one school can teach in multiple schools within the state, within the district, or beyond the district in other states. And then the other aspect of that is making sure that teachers have the professional development, training, and support that they need in order to be successful digital teachers as well. Providers. All students have access to multiple high-quality providers. We think the more providers that are high quality, that are in the digital learning environment, the better our quality education system we're going to have. And so we think, as Tom was saying, that we need to have an open, expeditious approval process to get many people into the mix. We want to balance it to make sure they're high quality, and so that is the trick. But we think that there's plenty of opportunity for public, chartered, not-for-profit, private providers into the mix. As long as they're all treated equally and we create a level playing field, we think that competition in this area can really produce the greatest result. I'll just give an example of one of the administrative requirements in Florida that is so interesting, is that if you want to be a digital provider in the state of Florida, you actually have to have an office in Florida, which sort of negates the point of virtual learning, which is that you can learn anywhere at any time as long as you have an office in Florida. And so those are the types of administrative requirements that we think are barriers to entry that really diminish the opportunities for students to gain knowledge through digital learning. And then finally, just providing parents with easy to understand information. I'm a parent, I have a 5th grader, and understanding the opportunities of what exists and the options of what exists for your children is a full-time job. And so providing that information and letting parents know that there are other opportunities for them, I think, is critical to expanding digital learning beyond the classroom and into students' lives. And then assessment and accountability. We believe that with the Common Core that there's a great opportunity for expanding assessments digitally, that many states will be able to come together and develop those standard assessments, and allowing them to be administered digitally also moves us away from the calendar year where all students take the same test on the same day, and really allows students to take the test when they're ready and not have to wait or not take the test before they're ready. And so we also think digital formative assessment is good. It's a great learning tool for teachers and for students. That we also think that the fundamental accountability for digital learning, and really for all education, should be if the students are learning, it works, it's high quality. And that's really the metric, and that's the measure that we should use in order to determine whether or not the content, the instruction, or the schools are high quality. Now, the next two are probably the big issues in state legislatures this year, next year, and years beyond, and they have to do with funding. The first one, number 9, is funding is really how we go about funding. So we believe that funding ought to create opportunities and incentives for performance, options, and innovation. As Governor Wise had mentioned, in Florida, the Florida Virtual School, the school only gets the full amount of their per student funding if the student finishes, completes, and achieves the course. And we should move more toward a model of an achievement-based funding system if we want students to achieve. It makes sense. We also think there should be flexibility. We don't think it's possible for schools today, school districts, states, to do everything that they're doing right now in the same exact way that they're doing it, and then layer on digital learning on top of that. We think it's not financially feasible, and we don't think it's necessarily the best thing for education. We think there needs to be a transformation, a process. So creating more flexibility in parts of the budget so money can be used to accelerate the transition to the digital age. And we also think that providing the funding in a way that allows students the greatest flexibility to pick what courses they're going to take and maximize their own learning potential. And then finally, this is really what we spend the money on. This is infrastructure supports digital learning. And as we move and transition into this new paradigm, we're going to have to think about and consider different ways of funding and what we actually fund. One of the things is replacing textbooks with digital content, and it's not just about putting a textbook online or making it available on the web. It's really about changing and making it even more interactive so that students can gain the most knowledge through an interactive opportunity. At the end of the day, every kid has a textbook at school or multiple textbooks in their backpack and lugging them around. But if we want students to learn, we're going to have to transition from that model to a model where all students have access devices and access to the internet so that they can download the digital content. And so we think that transition can happen over time, but it's integral to really creating an environment where students can access the content and the instruction. And then, and there are multiple ways to do this. It doesn't have to just be the state provides a digital access device or a laptop computer to every student. There are lots of innovative ways, and we think states in particular, and with the budget challenges that many states are facing, that these also create opportunities to identify innovative ways, public-private partnerships, or using the negotiating power of the state with large student populations, or even multi-state negotiated contracts where students and school districts can access a lower quality or a high quality but low cost digital learning material and content. And then, of course, just to have the data systems that are able to capture the information and use it to make informed policy decisions over time. So those are the 10 elements of high-quality digital learning. We announced them in December at our summit in Washington, National Summit on Education Reform, and in the spring, we will be releasing the grading scale, the rubric that we're going to use to measure states and their progress toward adopting these goals, these reforms. And then in October, we're going to actually issue report cards for all the states on where they are in creating a high-quality digital learning environment for all students.